Hi, my name is Joe Rafter. I'm co-founder and president of the California Youth Football Alliance. I'm a former member of the Save Youth Football California Coalition that defeated the bill to ban youth tackle football in California in 2018. As a part of the Alliance, we launched our own bill and a strategy to accelerate the advancement of youth tackle football in a medically informed way.
Joe, how were you guys able to beat the proposed tackle youth football ban in California?
This is a great question, Jeff. So, that bill, these kinds of bills, what we learned was it's all grassroots. So, we're just leaving a rally here in Boston trying to help the Commonwealth of Massachusetts community support a ban against, or support opposition against their bill. These politicians need to hear from the local grassroots communities. They want to hear from their voters in their backyard. And when they hear from the voters in their backyard, they actually make decisions. You can influence them. That's your best leverage to influence them, is by speaking to the politicians that are the elected officials in your backyard. So we did two things. We did a letter writing campaign. We did a letter writing campaign the week before, 2 weeks before the bill was set to go to hearing. And then we did a phone calling campaign. And the volume, I was in Sacramento when the phones were ringing off the hook, and we're walking into the assembly members' offices, and they were bothered by the fact that we had so much of our community speaking up and opposing the bill. That's frankly how it died. The folks in the community, the football fans, the youth tackle coaches and families speaking up against the ban.
Tell us about the California Youth Football Alliance.
So the California Youth Football Alliance, as I said, was born out of the Save Youth Football California Coalition. We really have three things that we're doing. The first thing that we're doing is we're putting legislative content in place. The only reason that we're doing that is because we have to defend our rights to continue to play the sport. AB 1, Assembly Bill 1, the California Youth Football Act, was originally published on December 3rd of 2018, and it was amended last Thursday, I don't know the date of that, April 11th, to include significant legislative content. The California Youth Football Act represents the most comprehensive and detailed set of safety standards for youth tackle football in the country. It exceeds every other standard from a legal perspective and every other standard from a guideline perspective that may be from organizations like Pop Warner, AYF, USA Football, Snoop Dogg, etc. That's the first thing that we're doing. Legislation only because we have to. Second thing is we're working with our members. So there's about 100,000 football families in the state of California, and so we're working very closely with them to understand what their needs are, understand how we can work with them to help raise the safety standards as defined by the legislation. How can we invest in their backyard to improve the safety standards of youth tackle football for them? Then the third piece is partnerships. So we have a backlog of about 55 partners. These are solution providers who are able to actually help youth tackle football raise the safety standards in their backyard, and we're coming up with very creative ways to address the economic gaps, some of the financial concerns that we have to address in order to afford some of these partnerships.
What advice do you have for other states trying to combat these proposed youth football tackle bans?
That's a great question. So first, you got to get yourself organized. So if you look at the Massachusetts Youth Football Alliance, that's been organized in a similar structure with a similar mission and intention as the California Youth Football Alliance. That's the first thing you got to do, and you got to rally the football community inside of your state or commonwealth to a common cause. And it's not an AYF cause, it's not a USA Football cause, it's not a Pop Warner cause, it's a we support youth tackle football cause. That's the first thing that you have to do. The second thing is you got to get into the legislature. You got to have conversations with your local assembly members in their backyards, in their local offices, and you also have to show up at the state capitol. So you got to do both. You got to organize locally and you got to organize centrally so that the assembly realizes that this isn't just a bunch of people running around trying to figure things out willy-nilly. It's a highly organized, very focused effort. In the conversations I've had with Paul at the Massachusetts Youth Football Alliance, I've encouraged him to organize the opposition much like you game plan your game. You set your offensive game plan, it's structured, it's planned, you practice it, and then you go out and you execute it. It's the same kind of discipline and rigor that you need to, from the football field, that you need to bring into the opposition.
How do you think youth football got into this situation regarding actually battling for the legal right to play this game?
That's a great question. So we find ourselves in this situation where we're literally defending our rights to continue to have the freedom of choice for what sport our child plays.
Thank you very much.
By the way, it's not stopping at football. It's going to go to lacrosse, it's going to go to rugby, it's going to go to basketball, it'll go to baseball, and it's not going to stop at the youth level. It's going to rise up to the high school level. The reason why they're starting at the youth level is because they believe it's the weakest. They believe it's the easiest one to attack. And they're finding out very quickly that it's not actually the easiest one to attack and that we're standing up and battling for our rights. The truth of the matter is, nobody has really stood up for youth tackle football for decades. No one in the country has stood up and said, stop, wait a minute, we're going to stand up and we're going to oppose what others are saying about youth tackle football and put real, strong, codified best practices and leading practices into youth tackle football to continue to advance the sport. And so that's why the California Youth Football Alliance was born. We were born out of that void and we stepped into it, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a monopoly on all the right answers, but we did beat the bill and we're really proud of that, and we're back with our own bill and more needs to be done. So we can't rest. So what led us here was apathy, was nobody speaking up, and nobody really communicating the story of what's going on with youth football. What's going to take us forward are rallies like this, organizations like the Massachusetts Youth Football Alliance, the California Youth Football Alliance, and more coming to the table to put legislative requirements in place so that the safety standards are raised and bringing partners to the table, commercially available partners with solutions that are affordable for our youth tackle football communities.
Many parents are concerned about football safety. With that said, how has football become a safer sport, and why should kids play football?
So I said this earlier, this is not your father's football game. I played football as a youth in a suspension helmet, and some of us might not be old enough to remember what that was, but the technology's changed. So I'll give you 3 reasons. The technology's changed. The helmets are vastly different. They're much safer. We're working with partners right now that are still improving the safety standards of the helmets. So we're continuously advancing the technology. There's mouth guards that have sensors in them that can actually tell what's going on in the field and tell the truth. Not some made-up number that comes from, people who have an agenda against youth tackle football. So the first piece is technology. Second piece is the coaching. So the way we coach now, what's taught on the youth tackle football field, when I played, I was taught to use my head as a weapon. We don't teach that anymore. I was taught to bite the ball. I was taught to get my head across the bow, which put the head in play of all the contact. Now, through new techniques and new coaching standards, not only with tackling, but with blocking and defeating the block, we're actually removing the head from play. And through that education of our coaches, on the football side, performance goes up of our players. And as performance goes up, so does safety. Because the best players don't use their head. The other piece on the education side is our coaches are first aid, CPR certified. They go through health and safety training annually. So there's a raised safety standard. I've become a safer individual by being a football coach because I'm first aid CPR certified. Anywhere I go, I'm able to be a first respondent of a situation. So education is the football coaching is the third. is the second. The third is, frankly, the parents. The parents are on the job of safety for their children. So I run a 125 participant youth football program outside of San Francisco. My parents are on the job. If I'm not providing a safe situation for my child, which I do all the time, my parents let me know it. So there's a check and balance there that's watching the game, that has the best interests of their child at hand, making sure that the coaches are teaching the right techniques, making sure we got the right technology in place.
Do you think flag 7-on-7 football will prepare kids for tackle football when they reach high school?
So on the topic of flag football, flag's a great choice. I think everybody should have choices. I think if kids want to play flag football, it's a great game to play. It's not tackle football. It's a different sport. And it leaves a key element of the game out. So where's every football game won or lost? It's won on the line. Flag football does not have the line in play. Therefore, it's not the same as tackle football. So, yeah, are you going to learn some things? You're going to learn how to catch a pass. You're going to learn how to throw a pass. Flag football is like a pickup basketball game. You get a couple really good athletes, and you run a couple plays, just like you run on a basketball court, and the kids are out there catching. They're having fun. Don't get me wrong. But it doesn't teach you things like line play. It doesn't teach the kids to have a wide range of view across the field, so when they catch the ball, what do they need to do to react quickly so that they don't get tackled and they can make a real play. They're just trying to avoid the flag being pulled. I actually think flag football, I can make an argument that it reduces many of the standards of tackle football because the level of instruction isn't there. So I watch flag football games in my backyard, and the level of instruction there is not what you get on a tackle football field. So they're not talking about hand placement. They're not talking about where to put your head or not to put your head in a particular play. They're not talking about how to tackle safely. Here's what a flag coach says: just grab the flag, Johnny. But not actually instructing them on how to grab the flag and how to minimize contact. There's no standards for flag football like there are for tackle football. Flag's a great choice. It's different than tackle football. And it doesn't prepare the kids because there's many elements of the game that are left outside.